This message is not for everyone, but only for the chosen ones. If you are one of them, then this is for you. If not, then you won't understand what we're going to talk about next. Chosen one, before watching, write the number 777 in the comments. This will let other chosen ones know that you exist and that you are not alone. There are moments when a single breath feels too loud, as if the world were shouting at a frequency you cannot hear. You stand in a crowded room, every voice a wave that swells and crashes against your own quiet. You sense a discordant hum that doesn't answer the question you carry deep inside. Who am I for? In that stillness you hear a softer murmur, a whisper against the din, your heart's own pulse. It is not a call to abandon the noise, but a gentle invitation to listen for the hidden rhythm that belongs to you alone. When the noise grows louder, you do not push it away with force. You turn inward, as a pilgrim turns his gaze to the altar. There, amid the clatter of the world, you find a space where the divine breath settles, and you realize that the very same breath that fills the room has been shaping you into a shape that does not fit the clamor. It is the quiet realization that you are not meant to be a vessel for the noise, but a vessel for a different song. There is a sound that does not shout, one that slips beneath the roar of the world, a quiet murmur that only the truly attentive hear. It is not a command shouted from a distant tower, nor a promise glittering in popular promise. It is the gentle cadence of a heart aligned with God's own pulse, the steady whisper of a soul that has learned to listen while the crowd speaks louder. To remain receptive to this quiet, you must first silence the clamorous echoes that fill your day. Prayer, silence, a pause between breath and thought. Only then can you differentiate the echo of your own longing from the echo of others. When you begin to hear that hush, you begin to understand that your purpose is not a loud proclamation but a quiet, persistent tug toward a destiny that is yours alone to fulfill. You stand on a threshold where the world's chatter feels distant, as if the rhythm of your soul is out of sync with the noise around you. This does not make you an exile. It marks the place where the divine craftsman is still at work. The one who sees you as a work in progress is the same hand that laid the first stone of your purpose. In that unfinished state lies freedom. Freedom from the pressure to be perfect, from the illusion that you must fit the mold of a finished sculpture. Each day, choose the small acts that shape the shape: silence, to hear the quiet voice, humility to accept the gentle corrections, patience to endure the slow turning of the wheel. Remember, the masterpiece is not complete until the final touch. And that touch is yours, placed by a hand that knows the depth of your potential. At the threshold where noise dissolves into silence, you feel the pulse of the world soften, and the soul's true echo rises. In that hushed space, the heart discovers what it has been chasing in daylight. Silence is not absence. It is a deliberate pause, a breathing room where the spirit can speak without the clamor of opinion. When you sit in that quiet, you learn to read the subtle signs of the heart: a sudden ache that speaks of a calling, a distant joy that betrays a hidden truth. It is there that the self, forged by trials, begins to shape itself, not by the applause of others, but by the gentle touch of conviction. Remember, the louder the day, the more precious the silence. Seek it, guard it, let it be the lantern that guides you toward the purpose you were made to walk. Listen, not to the bustle of the world, or the applause of a crowd that has forgotten its purpose, but to the quiet vibration that stirs within your chest, like a drumbeat heard only by the heart that has been set. This is not a whisper of wind. It is a steady thrum that cannot be swallowed by noise. It is the echo of a promise you have not yet seen, a shape that grows clearer as you turn away from the easy and stay in the shadow of stillness. When the call is louder than your doubts, it will not ask you to shout, it will ask you to listen, to feel the weight of its silence. In that hush, you will discover that the divine is not a loud instruction but a calm direction. And when you feel that pulse, you step forward, Not because you know the full road, but because you know the path is yours alone. You do not stand apart because of a grand, untouchable title, but because the Lord has carved a niche for your hands and heart. The quiet space between your thoughts and the world there is where the work begins. It is not a privilege of applause, but a duty of purpose. When you feel the weight of a solitary path, remember that the same hands that lifted the broken stone in the story of the shepherd also shape your own palms. Guard that space. Let it be a sanctum of discipline, not a laurel wreath of self-importance. In the silence you find the echo of his calling, and in the restraint you discover the courage to turn away from the noise that seeks to define you. The world may see a lone figure, but in his hands you are an instrument, tempered by patience and hammered by faith, destined to do more than merely belong. You may feel the fire of pride burning in your chest, a bright flame that promises power, a quick path to glory. Yet the first lesson the Lord whispers to those set apart is not to chase that light, but to carry the weight of the cross that he has already laid upon your shoulders. Responsibility is colder, steadier, more honest. It is the quiet work of tending unseen gardens, of listening to the unspoken needs of those who cannot voice them. It is the resolve to set aside the applause and follow the silent summons to love the least among us. When you choose responsibility over pride, you step from the realm of self to the realm of service, and there your true purpose begins to unfold. The chosen path is not a path of self-glorification, but a path of humble stewardship, and in that humility, the divine is most clearly seen. Your inner light is a lantern carried across a long, dark road. In the night, the wind blows, the wind of doubt, distraction, and the whisper of "you are not enough." To keep that lantern alight, you must guard the flame with the same care a shepherd guards a lamb in a storm. First, set boundaries. Let the noise of the world fall outside the circle of your attention. When the bells of social media clang, step back and breathe. Your focus is a muscle, tighten it with deliberate silence, turning your heart toward the stillness where God speaks. Second, examine the shadows that creep into your thoughts. They are not just doubts, they are often the quiet voice of opposition, a subtle jealousy that seeks to dim your spark. Recognize them, name them, and let them pass like rain on a stone. Finally, anchor your light in purpose. When your heart remembers the reason you were set aside, the flicker steadies, the path becomes clear. Let your focus be the compass that turns each day toward the horizon where you will become who you were made to be. In the hush between breaths, where the world's clamor retreats, the heart speaks. It is not a shout that demands attention, but a quiet stir within the soul, a compass pointing toward the divine. You have learned to read the signs of the mind, warnings, doubts, fleeting joys, yet the voice of the heart requires a different kind of listening. To hear it, you must first silence the noise that surrounds you. Set aside the hours of scrolling, the endless chatter of social media, the constant urge to respond. Sit, breathe, and let the weight of your thoughts dissolve like morning mist. In that stillness, a subtle truth emerges: the heart does not ask for applause, it asks for presence. When you rest in that presence, the subtle pulse of God's purpose becomes unmistakable, guiding you beyond the fleeting comforts of the day. Remember, the stillness is not a passive pause, it is a deliberate act of faith, a discipline that sharpens the vision of the chosen path. Outgrowing familiarity is not a rebellion against the world you know, but a pilgrimage toward the unseen. When the old paths feel too close, the soil has already borne the harvest it was meant to produce. The first step is to notice the quiet tug of your heart toward a different horizon, not the loud call of a new voice. Listen to the stillness that rises when you step outside the comfortable circle. That is the echo of God's invitation. Let the memory of past joys not become a cage, but a compass pointing to where your talents are still untested. If a friendship keeps you in the same echo, evaluate whether it nurtures your growth or merely preserves the comfort of sameness. To outgrow, you must say, without fear, I am not finished with where I am. It is a small act of faith, leaving a familiar shore in hope of a deeper sea. In that deliberate departure, you discover the first true witness of your purpose. The enemy does not always roar, often it speaks in the hush between breaths. When you feel a tug of envy toward another's triumph, pause. That jealous whisper is a mirror, reflecting what you fear is missing from your own path. When distraction swells, social networks, endless tasks, listen for the quiet voice that says, "You are not enough." And when resistance takes the form of a gentle sigh, "This will not suit you," test it against the quiet weight of purpose. Guard your inner life as a gardener guards the soil, remove weeds of comparison, prune the vines of distraction, and water the roots of intentional focus. Observe the patterns, not the moment. A true adversary is subtle, a true remedy is deliberate. When you feel the pull, turn it inward. Ask, what is this trying to reveal about my own stumbling? In that honest stillness, the opponent's shadow dissolves, leaving only the light of your calling. When the world becomes a cacophony of demands, discipline is the quiet blade that slices through the din. It is not a roar that commands obedience, but a steady hand that steers the heart toward the narrow path. Every small act, saying no to a distraction, setting aside a moment for silence, polishes that blade until it glints with purpose. Imagine a hunter who, in the hush of dawn, senses the faint breath of a distant deer. The hunter's weapon is not the roar of a battle cry, but the patient, measured strike that draws the creature into the clearing. Likewise, let your will be the quiet edge that cuts away the noise of self-doubt and the clamor of comparison. When you sharpen this discipline, you feel the world shrink, the noise dim, and your own voice rise in clarity. In that stillness, the purpose which set you apart becomes unmistakable, and the sword of quiet conviction carries you forward into the light you were made to bear. When the world roars and the winds of doubt lift the sails of your heart, remember that patience is not idle waiting, but a steadfast anchor. In the tempest of doubt, it is the quiet, unshakable stone beneath the waves that keeps your vessel from drifting. It teaches us that growth is a measured ascent, not a sprint. Each day you pause, you let the stillness of God's rhythm fill the cracks of your impatience. In practice, set a minute each morning to breathe in silence, to listen for the voice that hums beneath the clamor of daily demands. When a task seems endless, divide it into smaller tides. Let the completion of each be a small triumph that steadies your resolve. Patience is not a passive surrender. It is the deliberate, disciplined choice to trust the timing of the one who knows the depth of your journey. Hold fast, for the storm will pass, and in its wake you will rise, unbroken, as the sea calms beneath a calm horizon. In the hush that follows the day's clamor, you find the place where true endurance is forged. It is not in the roar of triumph or the applause of the crowd, but in the stillness that follows the storm. When the world insists on noise, you turn inward, and there you feel the weight of purpose settle like a stone into your chest. Each silence is a lesson, a breath held, a thought paused, a heart that does not yet know its full shape. In that quiet hour, your spirit is tempered, your resolve deepened, and your character is polished by a fire that no one else can see. Remember that endurance is not a sprint. It is a slow, deliberate walk in the dark. The light will appear only when the stone of your faith has been ground to a fine grit. And in that grinding, you will discover that the quiet is not an absence, but a presence, an unseen hand guiding you toward the shape you were made to be. Humility is not a softening of resolve, but a sharpening of vision. In the quiet of a still heart, you see your own reflection not as a bright image of what you aspire to be, but as the shadow of your true calling. It is a mirror that turns the light of your talents back upon the source, revealing where they are borrowed and where they belong. When you let pride fall away, the noise of comparison ceases, and the voice of God, gentle yet firm, may be heard above the clamor. Practice this by setting aside a daily pause, an hour of silence in which you ask, "What is the hand that has shaped me, and what will it shape next?" Each answer you receive, no matter how small, is a step toward a purpose that was never yours to claim and yet was placed there for you to fulfill. In that humility, you learn that true strength is not a display of might, but a quiet trust in the design that laid your feet upon the path. There is a quiet place where the noise of the world dissolves into a still breath, and there you find the soil in which your true self can sprout. Solitude is not the absence of people, but the intentional setting aside of their chatter, so that your heart may listen to the whisper of the one who shaped you. In that hush, the Spirit catches the seeds of purpose, watered by prayer and disciplined reflection. You learn that growth is not a sprint across crowded streets, but a slow, patient root work beneath the earth, unseen yet vital. Let each moment alone be a deliberate act of obedience, a small sacrifice of comfort for the promise of renewal. Remember, the greatest harvest comes from the quietest soil. In this solitude, you are not alone. You are cradled by the hand that has formed you, and the world will hear the bloom that follows. In the hush between your thoughts, a hand unseen moves the very gears of your life. It does not shout its presence, it presses gently, as a father's palm steadies a child's trembling. You feel its touch only when you still your world enough to hear it. To walk by this quiet strength, turn your focus inward. In moments of doubt, pause not to solve but to listen. Let the breath that accompanies your heart's rhythms be the map of the one who shapes your path. When the noise of the world seeks to scatter you, let that same hand guide your attention to the quiet truths of Scripture, to the counsel of a humble friend, to the simple act of kindness. Remember, faith is not a fire that burns bright at the center. It is a steady, unseen current that carries you through storm and calm, trusting that the one who holds your hand will bring you safely to the shore. You have a quiet conversation that no one else can hear, a dialogue that begins in the hush of your own heart. In that silence, the voice does not shout, it whispers as the wind does to the mountain. You are not here to be swallowed by the noise, but to be heard. Yet the very same voice can be drowned in doubt, in the clamor of others' expectations. Listen, not with ears but with spirit, with a mind that has been trimmed by discipline. When the world questions your footsteps, pause and ask your own soul, what is the purpose that stirs beneath this breath? The answer may be a single quiet word: patience, compassion, love, repeated until it becomes a compass. Remember, the sacred dialogue is not a lecture but a partnership. The voice that speaks is both guide and mirror, urging you to grow in the shape of the divine hand. Let it direct your path, not your fear. Light pours into the soul like a river of grace, but even the brightest current must meet the dark stones that shape its path. In the day-to-day rhythm of faith, you will find yourself slipping between two worlds, the radiant promise of God's love and the shadow of your own doubts. To keep the balance, first acknowledge the shadows. They are not enemies but mirrors reflecting what you have yet to learn. When the night grows long, do not flee in fear, but sit in stillness, allowing the quiet to reveal hidden truths. Discipline is the bridge that carries you between the two. It is not a wall but a scaffold, built of humility, patience, and honest self-inspection. Remember, a candle's flame is sustained by the very darkness it illuminates. Let your light be steady, and let the shadows be the lessons that sharpen it. In this dance of day and night, your purpose unfolds. There are streets that hum louder than your own heart, and voices that promise rest yet sap the marrow from your spirit. In those moments, the noise is a thief, stealing the spark that was given to kindle your purpose. Do not allow it to become a tide that pulls you away from quiet conviction. First, recognize the sound. It may be a friend's laughter, a colleague's critique, the endless scroll of screens. Each is a temptation to lean on the world's applause. Second, reclaim your focus. Set boundaries as you would a gate. Close the door to chatter that dims the light within. Third, practice the discipline of silence. In that stillness, the heart hears the whisper of a higher calling, not the clamor of the crowd. Remember, you are not a vessel to be filled by noise. You are a vessel to be filled by the Word. Keep the noise at arm's length and let your energy flow toward the quiet promise of purpose. Beware the mirror of pride's deception. In the still room of your heart, it casts a silvered image, bright and sure, that says, "You are enough." Yet that glow is a trickster, for it takes the light of your victories and turns it into a halo of self-satisfaction. You may see yourself standing tall, but the frame is forged of applause, not of God's quiet calling. When the echo of your own voice grows louder than the whisper of the Lord, the subtle song of humility is drowned. The mirror does not reveal the path ahead. It only magnifies the footsteps you have taken. To guard against it, pause before you speak. Let your thoughts linger in silence, and ask whether the next word serves the image or the image serves the word. In the quiet, you will find not an affirmation of who you are, but the revelation of who you are meant to become. You find yourself in the cradle of comfort, where the familiar hum of routine embraces you like a warm blanket. Yet that same blanket folds around your hands, muffling the whisper that rises from deeper within. A chosen soul must learn that safety is not a sanctuary but a cage. When you let the rhythm of the known dictate your breath, the call, soft, persistent, undeniable, becomes a distant echo. Step outside that circle. Seek the uncharted corners of your heart, where doubts stir and conviction grows. It is there, amid uncertainty, that the Spirit's work becomes visible. Do not mistake familiarity for fulfillment. Let the yearning that gnaws at your ribs guide you. Let it pull you beyond the comfort of what you know, into the vastness of what you are meant to become. There is a silver thread that runs through every triumph, a promise that if you only press the right buttons, the doors will swing open. In the hush of your own ambition, it whispers that the world will hand you the crown because you have the right posture, the right words, the right timing. Yet the quick success you chase is a mirage, a reflection in a desert glass. It dazzles the eye, but its light is thin and fleeting. It cannot nourish the soil of your character. When you lean too heavily upon instant victories, you trade depth for speed, neglecting the slow, deliberate shaping that only God's patience can provide. A moment of triumph is a spark, not a furnace. Let the fire of your purpose burn steadily, not a bright flare that burns out. Guard your inner life against the glitter of instant glory, for the true chosen one's path is an enduring pilgrimage, not a sprint to a finish line. There is a quiet voice that never asks for permission. It murmurs in the corner of a fellowship, in the pause between a colleague's praise and your own. It takes the shape of admiration and, in a moment of weakness, of a snarl. When you are being shaped, such a whisper can turn the path you walk into a narrow road of comparison. It invites you to measure your worth by what others possess, not by the light you carry. Guard your focus. Listen not to the applause of the world, but to the stillness of the Creator's quiet. When envy rises, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what was I given to cultivate, not to covet? Remember, the flame that burns for you will dim if it is fed by the cold fire of jealousy. Let your discipline be a shield, your humility a lamp, and the truth of your calling the only compass you follow. You have felt the soft, familiar hand of comfort, its warm blanket over the ache of uncertainty, its quiet voice that says, "It is enough." Yet that very hand is the hand of resistance, the silent guardian that holds you in a place where the soul cannot grow. When the world whispers that staying where you are is safety, it is also telling you that you have ceased to move. The first sign is the sudden, unearned ease of the familiar. The second is the faint, patient ache that the heart ignores because it believes the present is all that is needed. The third is the quiet voice that says, "Why risk the known?" Each of these is a gate that the Lord has set, and each gate is a pause that allows the deeper calling to be silenced. To see beyond the veil, pause, breathe, and ask, what would God have me do if I were not afraid? Then step, even if your muscles tremble. The comfort that is resistance is a mirror. Look into it, and if you see a reflection of your own complacency, turn your gaze toward the horizon that calls your name. There is a quiet temptation that slips through the cracks of every mind, the itch to know every story, every detail, every new path. It begins as a harmless curiosity, a spark that warms the heart. Yet if left unchecked, that spark grows into a roaring flame that consumes the very focus it once promised. When the mind wanders, it abandons the stillness where the divine word speaks. Each diversion is a stone laid on the road to purpose, a quiet erosion of the discipline that builds character. Remember the parable of the lost coin. The hunter's eyes were fixed, not distracted by every glittering catch. Guard your attention as you guard your breath. Set brief, deliberate pauses. What does this serve? Does this align with the whisper in my soul? Let your curiosity be a compass, not a compass mislaid. In stillness, the call is sharper. In distraction, it dissolves. There is a quiet heaviness that settles over the heart when doubt is kept behind closed doors. It clings to the soul like a stone in a stream, slowing its current, obscuring the light that is meant to guide it. You may feel it as a whisper in a crowded room, a tremor beneath the surface of certainty. But the silence does not absolve it. It amplifies it, turning a fleeting question into a lasting burden. When you hoard those questions, you deny yourself the divine counsel that flows in humility and conversation. You also invite the subtle enemy, jealousy, distraction, a hardened spirit, into the chambers of your mind. Release your doubt into the presence of a trusted confidant or into prayer. Speak it, write it, let it be seen. Only by sharing can you lift the weight and let the light of truth pass through. Remember, the chosen path is not walked in solitude, but in the shared reflection of a community of faith. Imagine the quiet corner of a room where light falls soft and thoughts are still. Now picture a moth drawn to a flame that has not yet been lit. The moth thinks it seeks illumination. It does not know the flame comes from a lantern held by a stranger. Likewise, the world offers subtle currents, gossip, fleeting pleasure, the endless scroll of social noise, each whispering that it can ease the burden of your heart. They arrive without fanfare, claiming to be friends, yet they pull you, unobserved, away from the path you have chosen. The only shield against these unseen distractions is a deliberate stillness. Before each decision, pause. Ask yourself, who is speaking from within? If the voice is not that of the quiet, untroubled place that the Spirit cultivates, set a boundary. Reserve time each day to breathe in silence, to let the Spirit speak louder than the world. In this way, the unseen becomes visible, and you can walk the path set before you with confidence and purpose. Ambition, when it begins to outgrow the silence of your heart, becomes a furnace that burns not only your dreams, but also the quiet grace that sustains them. It whispers that greatness must be measured by the weight of your own ambition, not by the weight of God's grace. When the fire grows unchecked, it lures you toward the glitter of accolades, eroding the humility that steadied your steps. You may feel the pull more, faster, higher. Yet the same hands that hold the ladder can also lift you toward a summit where your sight is clouded by a haze of self-satisfaction. Guard your ambition with the same vigilance you reserve for your faith. Ask yourself, to whom do I serve? Is the flame fueled by a desire to make a difference, or by a wish to outshine the world? When ambition is rooted in purpose, it becomes a quiet, steadfast light. When it is not, it becomes a wildfire that devours the very path it was meant to illuminate. When the world presses its endless chatter into your ears, pause. In that pause you may find the quiet place where purpose sits, like a candle's flame that refuses to be snuffed. Choose, with deliberate care, a single truth to hold, be it love, mercy, or the simple imperative to serve. Set that truth as your compass. Then, like a seasoned sailor who trusts the wind's direction, anchor your attention to it, refusing to let distractions scatter your gaze. Each day in the morning stillness, remind yourself of that chosen point of focus, and let it be the thread that weaves through every decision. When doubts rise as tempests, remember that the storm does not belong to you. You belong to the steadfast core you have chosen. Hold it firmly, not with brute force, but with the quiet strength that comes from knowing the heart's true north. Take the first step, not with a shout, but with a breath. The road you tread is not marked by signs, but by the quiet in your heart. When the world demands noise, silence your mind and listen to its soft echo of purpose. In each small act, an honest word, a patient pause, a steady hand, you carry the weight of your set-apartness. Let discipline be your lantern, guiding you through the night of doubt. Resilience is not a roar, it is a gentle persistence, a steady stride against the tide of distraction. And when the path grows steep, rest your feet on the rock of faith and press forward. For no triumph is louder than the quiet courage that keeps you walking. You stand at the threshold of your own heart, and the first step toward the promised kingdom is to set its walls. Discipline is not a chain, but a scaffold. Each routine you build, each small act of restraint, a brick laid in a fortress that resists the wind of distraction. Begin by mapping the terrain of your day. Designate moments of silence, moments of prayer, moments of honest reflection. In those quiet hours, listen not to the clamor of the world, but to the whisper of the Spirit that calls you to be more than a shadow. When temptation drags your attention like a siren's song, remember that the greatest triumph is not a single act of will, but the daily decision to turn your focus inward. Treat your thoughts as a garden. Prune the weeds of doubt, nurture the seedlings of purpose. Let the fortress rise, not in arrogance, but in humility, for it is only by the disciplined heart that the chosen one may truly belong to the quiet, unshaken promise of His grace. The first act of awakening is not a grand proclamation, but a quiet surrender, a deliberate turning away from the din that fills your days. Close your eyes to the chatter of praise shops, the clamor of social media, the relentless gossip of the world, and feel the weight lift from your shoulders. In that stillness, the faintest whisper begins to rise, a voice so gentle it might be mistaken for breath, yet so firm it is unmistakable. Listen, not to the noise that seeks to drown you, but to the cadence of purpose that has long been waiting in the quiet corners of your heart. Allow that voice to become your compass, directing your steps toward the unseen path that is yours alone. When you let the world's clatter fade, you hear the divine invitation. You were made to stand apart, to be the light that glows from within. In that surrender, you claim the fullness of the calling you were fashioned to carry. You have been set on a path that is not a straight line but a winding road of seasons. Do not fix your heart on the horizon, for the horizon is always moving when you stride. Trust the journey, because it is in the turning of the road that your character is forged. When the compass points to a distant goal, remember that the true guide is the rhythm of your breath each morning, the humility in your hand when you help a stranger, the quiet moments of listening. Let your daily habits, prayer, reading, service, be the stones laid along the path. Each stone, though small, supports the weight of the whole pilgrimage. If you feel the weight of impatience, pause. In that pause, hear the whisper of God's steady hand. So walk, not to reach an end, but to become the one He has called you to be. The destination will arrive when the journey itself is complete. Within the quiet corridor of your days, a flicker has been set upon the fire of your soul. It is not a flash that merely dazzles. It is a steady beam that pierces the thickest gloom. In the hush that follows a storm, the heart learns to hear itself. You, who have been trained to shout against the wind, will find that true power does not roar from the noise of the world, but from the stillness within. When you pause, the echo of your own breath becomes a compass, pointing to the place where your purpose is quietly forged. Let the silence be your teacher, each breath a reminder that the most enduring strength is cultivated in moments of solitude, not in the applause of the crowd. It is in those pauses that wisdom takes root, that the fear of being seen is diminished, and that the Spirit presses the hidden gifts into your hands. So, when the noise threatens to drown you, step back. In the quiet, you will feel the weight of your calling settle like a stone in a calm pond, and you will discover that your greatest power is not in what you say, but in what you do when no one is watching. In the quiet hours, when the clamor of the world has faded to a low hum, you find the furnace of your true self. It is not in the applause of others, nor in the echo of your own praise, but in the hush that separates your breath from the noise. Imagine a blacksmith bent over an anvil, his hammer striking a single steady rhythm. The metal, raw and unformed, is shaped by the weight of silence and the patient pressure of each strike. Likewise, your identity is not carved by the cheers of the crowd, but by the stillness that lets your spirit reflect, your heart test, your will endure. Take a moment each day to close the doors, to quiet the chatter, and let the inner voice speak. In that silence, the contours of who you truly are emerge, sharper and steadier than any external validation. In a world that swells with noise, the true vision is a quiet harbor where the soul may breathe. You have been forged for more than to move through the day. You are invited to pause at each breath, to let the heart settle. When stillness is not a surrender but a deliberate choice, it becomes a map. It tells you where the shadow lies, where the light is unblinded, and where the call to act is not a frantic shout, but a steady pulse. Guard this sanctuary as you would a precious stone, sacred, unblemished, ready to reflect the light of purpose. Let every moment of silence be a rehearsal for the work you are meant to do. In this deliberate quiet, you will hear the whisper of the one who shaped you, and you will find the strength to move forward with purpose, not haste. You stand at the threshold of a future that refuses to be carved by the clamor of the world. Discipline is the quiet hammer that shapes it. When you choose to turn your attention inward, you are not merely saving time, you are building a fortress of focus. Each morning you sit in silence, the noise of doubt receding like dusk behind a mountain. That stillness trains your heart to listen for the subtle voice that whispers, "This is your path." In the long hours of routine, washing dishes, walking the dog, typing a report, embed the small acts of faith. Let your breath be a prayer, your work a hymn. You will find that habits, forged in the furnace of consistency, become the bedrock of a life that mirrors the design God has set before you. Remember, a future born from a disciplined spirit is not a dream, but a promise held in the hands of providence. Step forward and let the discipline of your inner life forge the destiny that was never meant to be a mere echo of the noise. There is a moment in the quiet of your own heart, when the noise of the world dissolves to a single thread. That thread is the vision that has been woven into your life by a hand far older than the stars. It is not a whispered promise, but a clear, unshakable light that beckons you to step beyond the familiar, beyond the comfortable. You do not need to claim superiority, only to recognize the responsibility that comes with being drawn toward a higher purpose. The awakening you seek is not a sudden flare, but a steady illumination, each day a quiet step toward the fullness of the calling that has been planted within you. Let this vision become your compass. In it you find the courage to guard your inner life, to still your mind, to let go of environments that no longer serve your growth. The work is yours, the blessing is yours, and the journey begins now, in the silence between breath and belief. Chosen one, if you hear this, write 888 in the comments. Let this be your response to the other chosen ones, and write what you received today in the spirit of gratitude for this day. Thanks for watching. If this message resonated with you, you can support the channel by giving it a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe and ring the bell. Join the movement. See you soon.